Hello everyone, ex-Bethelite here. I've had a chance to look through some notebooks again, and it's just a lot of paper and stuff, and trying to get it all figured out in order and whatnot is a process. But people have had a lot of questions about it, and I can give my interpretation of it, but I'm not an expert on it. It's something that I've looked at and there's been interest in, and I wasn't aware that there was this much interest in it until somewhat recently. And it's a different view or a different slant, really a different, uh, just a different view of the Bible. And it may be offensive to some people. So there's the warning there because it obviously is not the traditional Christian view of the scriptures. But from looking at the notebooks, I kind of get an understanding of why people would want to get into the occult. Because growing up in Christianity or any, really strict belief system, there is the concept of good and evil. And why would anyone want to tap into something that is evil? It makes no sense. It's completely illogical, right? I guess where the disconnect comes is what the occultists see as evil and what the Christian sees as evil. If the occultist does not see something as evil, then of course they would tap into it. So it makes sense then that the people doing what they're doing, they don't believe that it is evil per se. Where does this, confusion lie, or where is the disconnect? Well, one thing I've noticed was in Isaiah 45 and 7. I'm not going to read it, but Isaiah chapter 45 and 7, you can look that up. And it says something to the effect of God creates the light and the darkness, the good and the evil. Bear with me here. I'm just trying to explain a view so that we can understand the view. You don't have to accept the view, but it is beneficial to understand where someone else is coming from. So Isaiah 45 and 7, God creates the light and the dark, the good and the evil. Ownership of both good and evil. A lot of the confusion, I believe, between the two groups lies in the understanding of that scripture, because the occultists don't necessarily believe God to be an all good being. How can a being that is all good, 100% good, all the time, create evil? You run into something that is, from a human logic standpoint, impossible. Marcus cannot be all good all the time, but then go do evil. It's just not possible. So the concept that God is all good, or the spirit being entitled God in the Bible is all good all the time, is not a belief that the occultist, whoever's writing these notebooks, believe. They believe God is very capable of evil. They believe that God is very capable of deception. Now, let's dwell on that point, because another teaching that most Christians have, if not all, is that God cannot lie. God is incapable of lying. The logic is that something or someone all powerful cannot say something is going to happen that they are completely and totally capable of making happen, and there's no one capable of stopping them from doing it. They can't say something's going to happen and it not happen. It would make no sense for that to occur. So the concept that God cannot lie from that angle, I don't know that the occultist and the Christian would completely disagree with that point. Something all powerful is capable of doing what it says it's going to do. However, Isaiah 45:7, something capable of evil is also capable of deception. Deceiving someone is tricking them. It's not necessarily lying, because you're causing them to think something that is not true. You know it's not true. A lie, is or from the context of what we believe God can't do, is to say something with the intent of doing it and not do it. Or say something with the intent of that thing happening and it not happening. From their perspective, the scriptures aren't saying that God cannot say something without the intent of that happening and it not happen, or trick someone with the intent of fooling them and the events not take place because God never had the intent of it taking place. So there's differences in the view or the character of God, and it's interesting to me that some of these concepts are coming from Scripture. Isaiah 45:7. Scripture I've read a bunch of times and never really thought about it from a different angle. So there is that. God capable of good and evil. God capable of deception and everything under the umbrella of evil. Murder, destruction, everything. The lying, the other things, it just depends on your definition of that word. Another concept that is different is this ongoing concept that Satan is not the bad guy. Again, to the Christian, that sounds ridiculous. What do you mean? It's obvious, right? Well, not according to them or what I'm reading. Essentially, Satan is someone that resists, a resistor or an adversary. Now, if you break that down logically, someone that creates the good and the evil could create the adversary. An adversary, or someone who gets in the way. If you're a Christian and you're trying to do the right thing, and a force that gets in your way to make that hard, to make that difficult, to make this entertaining, or whatever the case may be, from what I'm reading, that force is not necessarily evil in itself if it's doing what it was designed to do. The person who authorized it or sent it would be evil. You've heard the term, "I'm just doing my job, don't yell at me." people say that all the time when they're working for a company, and they didn't write the company's rules. They didn't make the rules or the laws or anything. So why are you yelling at me? Go to the people that told me to do my job this way. So that's the concept, again, with the word Satan or adversary. An adversary, or someone who is put in a position to make something difficult, not necessarily being evil in themselves, because they're just doing what God told them to do. The angel that was sent to kill all the firstborn in Egypt. I'm sure the Egyptians did not see that as a good thing. Would they vilify the angel, or would they vilify the person who sent the angel to kill the firstborn babies in the land? Well, obviously, we understand the concept of following orders. So Satan, or adversary, being a term to some people apparently describing a role God gave them. So Satan also, from my understanding, does not denote necessarily a specific person or a specific spirit creature, because anyone could be an adversary. So it's more of a title describing a role, right? So you have a being that has the role given to it by a higher being that's good and evil. Now, it's interesting when I think about that and kind of meditate on what I'm reading, that a creature with thinking ability, which some people believe that the angels do not have agency or moral agency or the ability to think on their own. They just literally do whatever they are told to do without the ability to question anything. However, I don't believe that the occultists believe that. I think that the occultists believe that the angels, the spirit creatures, the Satans, the adversaries, the spirit creatures in general, have minds of their own, extremely intelligent ones, and they don't always agree with God. They don't agree with their orders. So that's where you have this whole clash in heaven, essentially. And with this clash, you have a group of people, the occultists, trying to figure out who's good, who's evil, who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. And that always goes back to the Garden of Eden, where the first humans were essentially told to rebel. They were essentially told, you don't have to follow rules and guidelines that are holding you back from achieving your full potential. This tree, this thing that represents knowledge of good and evil, is something that you can grasp, and then you can decide on your own and base your own actions on what is good and evil. You don't have to run around this area naked like children, not knowing good from evil, only doing what you're told to do all the time. Now, from their perspective, this person was the liberator. This person was trying to help at the expense of its own position, trying to help mankind break away from essentially a dictatorship that it didn't agree with. You guys don't have to do this stuff. Partake of this knowledge. There's also a tree of life, of immortality. Partake of this knowledge. Partake of this immortality. What happens is God becomes angry. God begins to pronounce curses. God actually literally sends down, according to scripture, a faction of the military with weapons to make sure that the first humans could not completely benefit from that knowledge by blocking their ability to obtain immortality. Their lifespan is not something that God was going to allow them to figure out how to extend that. So you now understand good and evil. You now can decide whether or not you want to put on clothes. You now can decide whether or not you want to listen to me. But you're not going to extend your life and live forever in this state. You're going to die eventually. So that's the whole view of it. The view of it is that the God character in Genesis is evil, is trying to withhold something good from Adam and Eve. And when they obtain it, make sure, okay, you have that knowledge, but you're going to die. So what good is it to you now? So it was an attempt to counteract that knowledge. You have something that it's almost like, if I have anti-aircraft missiles, I know this is a horrible illustration, but what do you want to do? You want to counter those. You want to knock them out, right? You don't want me having something that I can use in a rebellion. Well, you guys can't rebel if you don't even live that long. So you're going to just keep dying. You got this knowledge, but you're just going to keep dying now. So there's the whole concept of we're at war now. And it's interesting to see it from a different perspective. And then when I look at, they break down definitions of Satan and what a Satan is, and it's an adversary, and it's not wrong that it's an adversary. And then the concept of devil being a negative title or a slur almost to them. So they don't believe that the ones that are adversaries to God, the ones that rebelled against God, are necessarily devils. They believe that is a title given to them. XJWs would understand that as being called an apostate. It's just a title given to vilify someone for rebelling against a dictatorship. And there's also the belief that the original person or spirit creature that decided that I'm not going to do what God says anymore. Keep in mind, they think this is a good person. They think the one in Isaiah 45:7 who creates the good and evil was giving orders that were both good and evil. And the angels didn't agree with it all the time. And one of them rebelled against that and tried to lead the humans away. And a bunch of angels followed them. It's just a huge, interesting spin on our understanding of what happened. They see it from this side. We were raised to see it from this side. And that's where the confusion lies. And you also have the term Lucifer. And there's debate as to who Lucifer is. They believe Lucifer is the one that is involved with trying to awaken humans, essentially. Humans being, for lack of better terms, indoctrinated, and Lucifer is trying to wake them up, get them to realize their full potential. And that's where they believe the meaning of Lucifer, light bearer, bringing light, bringing understanding, bringing truth, essentially. So they think Lucifer's good, Lucifer brings light, Lucifer brings truth. God could do either or, depending on what he wants or how he feels about a situation. So there you have it. I mean, you pick sides, you pick what you think about the situation. I can understand from both perspectives, honestly. From both perspectives, I can understand that from the Christian side, everything evil has been attributed to what we think is one person called Satan. But from their perspective, Satan just means adversary. And God created the good and evil, so God created the adversary in order to balance things out. And when you look at it as a whole, the Garden of Eden, if God created an entire Garden of Eden, beautiful, but then put something right dead smack in the middle of the garden that was going to destroy the whole thing, they view that as evil. I guess it's the illustration of if I build all of New York City, awesome city, big city, huge buildings everywhere, but then I take a missile and blow up one of those buildings. Well, now I'm evil, right? I built a whole city, but by destroying one thing, doing one act of evil, now I'm evil. I could walk past 50 people. 49 of them I wave and say hello. But the 50th, I knock them out. I do an act of evil. Well, the police are going to come and they don't care that I was nice to the 49. They're here because I knocked out the 50th. So to them, a person doing evil is evil even though they do good also. So comment down below. Let me know what you think about all these things. I know it's a very different view from the one that we're accustomed to having, but the whole Lucifer bringing light, bringing knowledge goes right into the concept of trying to lead man to the tree of knowledge, trying to lead man to the tree of life or immortality. The angels in Noah's day that tried to essentially merge with man, live with mankind, teaching man. If you read the Bible, it says it there plainly, teaching man how to work with, metals and different disciplines and bringing knowledge and understanding. So it's deep. It's deep. To them, those are the guys you want to try to contact. You want to try to contact the guys that were kicked out for the rebellion, the guys that are trying to merge with man, not the one that tried to kill everybody because God, they merged with man. You know what I mean? So let me know what you think. This stuff is blowing my mind. 937-789-4029. Comment down below. This is ex Wallkill Bethelite signing out.